G'day mates, it's the Doctor here, and it's time to go over the much beloved, long-awaited, fan-favourite fossil deck. So, when it comes to fossils, these were used by Jim Crocodile Cook in the GX era, which was in the late 2000s, and it was only in 2020 they were finally printed. So if one wants to build a pure fossil deck, that is unfortunately quite impossible because there's not enough cards in the main deck, but that is why I'm combining fossils with Kokomorus, because Kokomorus have a lot of rock monsters. So, let's go over the deck. And here is Weathering Soldier, so when this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add the signature fossil card, Fossil Fusion, from the deck to your hand. And what I'm actually doing with this deck is that Gryken bought all the... He bought all of the fossil cards, while I had all the Kokomoru cards. So it's like we're combining our decks together. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. But anyway, we'll talk about some improvements that fossils could have later on, like any card ideas. But here we have Kokomoru Supplier. This is the latest Kokomoru support card, and this came out in Return of a Duelist. And when a face-up rock monster is sent to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from the hand and search for a Kokomoru card. So the fact it says except during the damage step, does that mean if you have a rock monster destroyed in battle, you cannot summon this card from the hand? Because that's kind of a problem. But I guess it also works with like anything being destroyed by a card effect during your opponent's turn, because this would be a trigger effect, won't it? Where it doesn't have to say quick effect, but you can do it during your opponent's turn, and well, I guess yeah. Yeah, either way, can someone correct me on that, if you can special summon this when a rock monster is destroyed in battle? But yes, otherwise, you could use your Kokomo rock monsters, how they can sacrifice themselves to negate a spell, trap, or monster effect, like Sandman negates traps, then Wald negates spells, Guardian negates monster effects, and Overload negates summons. So that is how you can use Kokomoru Supplier, and it doesn't have to be with Kokomoru monsters necessarily. It could be your fossil cards like Weathering Soldier. So moving on, we have Kokomo Knight. So this is a Beast Warrior, but you can reveal an Iron Core Kokomoru from your hand to special summon a Kokomoru monster from the deck. So that's another way of searching. And also has 2000 attack, which may not be much for a level 4 monster, but that's what I liked about Kokomorus back in the day, how they were such high-powered level 4 monsters, but they self-destruct at the end phase, because usually monsters that are level 4 with more than 1900 attack, or 1900 attack or more, I should say, they usually have really bad side effects, like Jirai Gumo has to require you to pay half your life points through a coin flip or something. But now we have one of the boss monsters, or the boss monster, Kokomo Maximus, and you can special summon this card by banishing Kokomo from the hand. And I've shown this card off before, but this is a misprint, as you can see. So if the camera can focus. Is it focusing well? Because notice how the ultimate rare foiling is off-center. You see that with the attributes and the stars? So pretty cool. But yeah, with Maximus, once per turn you can destroy a card your opponent controls. And yeah, easy as that. And also has the same stats as a Blue Eyes monster. And then there's only 4 trap cards for the deck, so you have Call of the Haunted to revive your Kokomo monsters for more negations, and Core Reinforcement is just the same as Call of the Haunted, but specifically for Kokomorus. There's not much difference. It's kind of silly, but here we have Iron Core Luster, which can negate spells or traps. So again, we have more negation, but the problem with the deck is that it doesn't have a lot of summoning. Like, you can't swarm the field with the deck. But maybe I'll talk about that at the end. But for now, here is Fossil Fusion, finally printed after nearly 2 decades? And with this card, you can fusion summon monsters from either player's graveyard. Also, if you use a monster from your opponent's graveyard as fusion material, it cannot be targeted by monster effects. I don't know why it says, like, any card effect. Like, why does it specifically have to be monster? Because otherwise, Sky Strikers might have a hard time with fossils. Yeah, like, we'll ever see that. But we have Foolish Burial and Miracle Rupture, so with these cards, they pretty much do the same, except with Miracle Rupture, you get to draw a card if you have Fossil Fusion in the grave. Then we have Time Stream. So this is like rank up magic for Fossil Fusion monsters specifically, and you get to level up into higher fusion monsters. And it's interesting, and I'll show the extra deck later on when we get to it. But here is Specimen Inspection, and I'd say this is why this deck is better at going second, maybe, because reveal Fossil Fusion in your hand, send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, and declare a type level, and then your opponent must send one of those monsters to the graveyard. So that could be risky if you don't know what you're going up against, but it's a good way of getting the materials to the graveyard so you can steal it with Fossil Fusion for your own fusion summons. Now we have Diamond Core Kokomo, so this card lets you add any Kokomo card from the deck to your hand, like Level Lower Monster, or Spell and Trap, or Maximus, or even Iron Core of Kokomo. So, before we get too ahead, so Diamond Core is probably the best card for the deck because you can banish it from the graveyard and protect your monsters from being destroyed. And that's really useful when Kokomo's often self-destruct. But you can reveal another rock monster or any monster of the same type to protect them from self-destructing, but with Maximus you have to send from your hand to the graveyard to keep him alive. And so we have Iron Core, which is like the heart and soul of Kokomo's, and you're going to add it back to your hand by skipping the draw phase or draw a card, then discard a card and add this to your hand. Now, we're going to move on to the Fusion deck. Or, Fusion deck? Who says that anymore? I'll just sort that out a bit. Okay, so Fossil Warrior Skullbone. So it requires a rock monster and level 4 lower monster, which is easy, like maybe with Specimen Inspection, if you don't know what you're going up against, and just say level 4 something. And yeah, there's an easy target for you. And you can also banish this card from the graveyard to add Time Stream from your deck to your hand. So I do like how they're adding additional effects that didn't happen in the anime, kind of like with Cyber Angels. Now we have Fossil Dragon Skullgar. So this card inflicts piercing damage, but you get to add, you can banish this card to add Fossil Fusion to your hand, and yeah, you probably want to go for more stronger fusion monsters, so probably Skullbone first, and then level up into something like Skull Knight or Fossil Warrior Skull King. I'm not sure why Graken only has one Skull Knight, but yeah, with this card, you can banish this card to target a monster on the field, destroy it, so it's destruction from the graveyard, kind of like Grid Sweeper, if you guys know that card for Cybers. Maybe that's a bit of foreshadowing for my Cybers deck profile. Now we have Fossil Warrior Skull King, so I think people were excited about this card, how it's another way of stealing cards from your opponent's graveyard, where you can discard a card and then, well, special summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard. And then, if you keep doing that, you'll have materials for, like, Link Summons. And then, Fossil Dragon Skull Geos. With this card, this is why you want to send higher level monsters from your opponent's deck to the graveyard with Specimen Inspection, and this card can switch the attack and defense of your opponent's monsters that it battles. Also, it does piercing. And finally, we have Gallant Granite, so another rock monster, and it just requires 2 level 4 monsters, and you can detach an Xyz material to add a rock monster from your deck to your hand. So you could add any of the Kokomo monsters or Weathering Soldier, or Nibiru, because Nibiru is a rock type. There are some other fossil cards that are coming out in the future, like Shell Knight is coming out, but I'm not sure if it'll help out the deck much, but I'll just show you some of the other options, like, as I was saying with Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, how you can use your opponent's monsters for Link Summons like these guys. And, yeah, I hope we get to see original fossil cards, like we had with Valkyries. And I don't know, it's an odd deck. Like, yes, it's nostalgic to see it finally be printed in the real world, but can they be good? Well, I do play this deck for fun with Gryken sometimes, and yeah, it's just that for fun, but not for competitive play, which I hope... Is there a way to do that? You definitely need ways to summon your monsters more to the field, like have more monsters on the field to set up for negations or more link summoning, just something, you know? Because we don't have Soul Charge anymore. So the other cards we have Core Compression, so reveal Iron Core Kokomo in your hand, discard a Kokomo monster and draw 2 cards. That's risky, because with this card itself and discarding card, you're sacrificing to draw 2. And you also need another specific card in your hand. Now we have Block Golems, so you could tribute this card, target 2 level 4 level rock monsters in your graveyard, special summon them. And we have a Rock Spirit, so this is a way of special summoning from the hand, but you do have to banish an Earth monster from your graveyard. And it's fine, and I do have a second Kokomo Maximus, also an ultimate rare, but an actual regular printed version. Now we have Bergzak, which can attack twice. I don't think that matters, because some of the other fossil fusions can attack twice also. With Crusadia, when it destroys a monster in battle, you can add a Kokomo card from your graveyard to your hand. Like Diamond Core, so you get another search. Rook Lord is another good card, how you can tribute summon this card by 1 tribute if it's a Kokomo monster, then you can remove from play a Kokomo card to destroy 2 cards your opponent controls. Now we have Mega Rock Dragon, where you can banish as many rock monsters from your graveyard and negate 700 attack for each one. So 700, 1400, 2100, 2800, 3500. So thanks to Time Stream and Fossil Fusion, there'll be other ways of, well, not Fossil Fusion because it banishes, but, you know, or with the numerous ways of foolish burialing your cards. Now we have Gaia Plate, the Earth Giant. So this is what I was saying, how we are getting more fossil cards like Shell Knight, how Shell Knight can specifically search for this card, but I think it's the only target, a level 8 rock monster. And Gaia Plate is good, but again, there just needs to be more fossil cards for the main deck, and there is like Fossil Dyna, I think, where it prevents special summoning, but, well, if neither player can special summon, you can't Fossil Fusion, so... Yeah, what do you guys think of this deck? I think there is a version out there with Adamanticators, but yeah, I think this is also a misprint, because as you can see, the T is crossing over into the attribute. Can you please focus, camera? Yeah, you guys see that? I think that might be a misprint. Not a big one, but just noticeable enough. So, yeah, what do you guys think of fossils? Can you think of ways to improve them? Please leave a comment if you know how, and until next time, take care, mates.